Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hey guys, just wanted to come to you with a podcast on the move, an after action review of the City Council work session. There were some discussions on the Facebook, just a little discussion back and forth between myself and the former mayor, Tom McMasters. If you go over to Brick City Town Hall, you can look at that, read that, and make out of it what you want. I just want to make it clear again that the reason for this podcast, the reason for the group Brick City Town Hall, is to help encourage other folks to get involved in city government. And get involved, I mean pay attention, to understand where their tax dollars are coming from. So what's the purpose? I want to bring information to you. I want you to take that information, do your own research, find what is interesting to you, what is important to you, and talk to your council members, talk to your mayor, write your city manager, write your council members, pull them aside after a council meeting. I want all that. Be involved. Let them know that you are paying attention and you want to know more. Make them explain the things you don't understand. Okay? And that's the whole reason for this. This isn't for me to tell you how to feel, tell you what to think. None of that. That's not the purpose here. I do give you my opinion. And I give you my opinion I'm not trying to sell it to you so much as I'm trying to say, here's what I think. What do you think? Not everybody's going to agree. And I totally get that, understand that, and I'm cool with that. So if you go over to the Brick City Town Hall page and you look on the video I made for the YouTube page, I'm trying to utilize a little more, Truman's Town Hall Podcast YouTube. I made a video just talking about the agenda of the work session. Now that has happened. There was discussion. That's the important part. That's what I like to pay attention to. I like to hear what the council members are saying. I like to hear how they are saying it. I like to hear the ideas or proposals that they bring up. And one of the proposals that they brought up last night wasn't a high dollar proposal, but it was a proposal about transparency. Transparency is very, very, very important to me. And so I'm a small government. I believe in small government. I believe in transparency when it comes to government. I believe in infrastructure. So making sure that the police station doesn't have a leaky roof, I believe is part of infrastructure, as well as roads and sidewalks, like they talked about creating a TIF, a non-school TIF. Watch the video, hhoh.org, March 19th, 2019, city work session. Watch it. It's their discussion on it. And one of the things I like to point out, and I want people to pay attention to, is the discussion. Because you will learn a lot within that discussion. The way they describe why they want a certain project done, why they want certain things like a raise. So when the topic of council member compensation came up at the end, my ears perk up. And they perked up when I read the agenda. It has been talked about for quite a while. And yesterday on the podcast that I did before the meeting occurred, I said I could go either way. And that is exactly why it is important to listen to discussion, because sometimes you're undecided. I think I would be decided right now after listening to that discussion. The explanation from the mayor and Richard Shaw for me was very weak on why they believe city council needs a pay raise. I get it. There hasn't been a pay raise for however long. However, I made the point yesterday that if you are in that position and you're worried about money versus work completed, then it's probably not the position for you. Mr. Otto came up with a number 0 and said it was a nice round number. I heard that part. So that's more along the lines of thinking that I see. But anyway, when things are discussed and you're bringing up compensation and being paid and using words like grossly ridiculous or cruel and unusual punishment, your ears have to perk up and say, what the hell? We're talking about a couple $1,000s, a couple $100 per month. So it's not a lot of money. How is it grossly? And they were talking about this in comparison to different cities throughout the throughout the Miami Valley. Cities like, and they didn't want to name the cities. They couldn't do it. Come on, guys, transparency. If you're going to discuss a situation, be transparent. Tell the people. Okay? If you want to, you're the councilman. If you want to tell them to go back to a video, okay, that's your choice to do. But they were talking about cities like Miamisburg. It's on the website. Centerville, Fairborn, Kettering, cities like this. Some, and that was the entire list that they provided for you. Okay? And they were comparing Huber Heights pay to that. Some of these, and they were comparing the size of the city. Okay, let's think about something. Richard Shaw is in Ward 1. How many constituents do you have? Some of these cities are all at-large councils. How many constituents do they have? There's a lot that I think could have been discussed with this, and I think it should be discussed down the line. If you're going to use city-to-city comparisons, which I think is very hard to do, what's the median income for Centerville versus Huber Heights? Median income would possibly decide income tax. Things of that nature. More money generated. There's a whole slew of things that you can discuss around city-to-city comparisons based off of what they provided and trying to decide if this amount of money that they're asking for an increase is worth the taxpayer's dime. Now, we heard in the video, you can watch it, it's 30 minutes, it's at the bottom if you're interested. We heard things like fair amount. I've heard that before. Pay your fair share. Come on, Huber Heights. We're working hard for you. Now, another thing I'd like to bring up. Richard said, I could provide for you what I've done for the city over the past month of March. Okay, what net profit have you brought to the city? If we're going to use those type of points, or if we're going to use that, what net profit have you brought to the city? Not what meeting did you go to, or what building did you stand out in front of to get a picture taken. And I don't mean that in an offensive way. That's part of the council member's job. They are meant to go out and shake hands with business owners, and that is great and perfect and fine. So I don't mean that as an insult. What I mean by that is they're saying the work that we have done. There's a lot of things that some of the council members choose to do, which is great, but it's a service that you have basically volunteered to do, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions. And for some, a city-to-city comparison cannot be made because the folks in Huber Heights, just from what I've seen, I think have a larger appreciation for their city. The folks that have been there long. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe I think Huber Heights is the best. I don't know. The people of Huber Heights are the best. Maybe that. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, if you're going to use city-to-city comparisons or describe your not getting paid the amount based on the amount of work you are giving to the city, and you can provide that, the question I would throw, and maybe they'll answer it, and I'm an open mind, and I'm an open mind. I can accept saying, okay, yeah, I was wrong. But the comparison that I would want to see is, what have you brought to the city that has benefited the city and saved taxpayers' money? When it all boils down, when everything's said and done, everything is nice to have, but it all boils down to money, does it not? I think it does, because without the money, without the tax base, without the taxpayers, city budget's a little short. Less things get done. Infrastructure falls apart. Things like that. Okay, that was off topic. Councilman Andy Hill said, it's time. It's time. There hasn't been a raise in 30 years. They said 30, then it was 33, then it was 34. So, we'll say 30 years. There hasn't been a raise for city council. Well, there was a little bit of a raise in 97, they said. And then, so I guess the question to you, the listeners, the citizens, the residents of the city of Huber Heights, do you think your city council deserves a raise? My opinion is no. No, I don't. Because I believe the job, like Ms. Burge said, is about service to your community. It's not about money. It's not about being fairly compensated. It's not about making money. It's about service to your community. And if you don't get that, then I personally think you are in the wrong position. And I said that last night. I know that's rough. And I mean that with love. Peace and love. There was, Richard had brought up other communities for the city-to-city comparison, receiving cell phone allotments and gas money and this and that. And, well, council members, right now, you guys get that stuff. The shirts you guys are wearing, you don't pay for. The little iPads you guys have, you don't pay for. You get paid for your business trips to NLC, to all these other conferences. The meals, the per diem, all that stuff. You guys get that compensation as well. So to try to play that angle, I don't want to say it's an angle. That's the wrong choice of words. But try making that point is a little hard and far-fetched as well. So, Miss Burge had some good comments. She was harsh, but she had some good comments. So, if you're going to base a raise on simply not making enough money for your time, then maybe you're not looking at the job as service. No, you're not making a lot of money. And no, even if there is a raise done, you won't make a lot of money. However, are you doing it for the service of the community? So you got to ask yourself, or you got to ask them. And maybe they'll explain this a little bit better. Maybe they weren't quite prepared to face some of the questions that Ms. Burge had and Mr. Campbell had. Because those two, as far as I could tell, were not on board. And neither was Mr. Otto. No, I haven't seen Mr. Morgan at a meeting in a while, so I don't know how his feelings are. But he'll be back and he'll say that. I think Mr. Lyons was out as well. So I don't know what their feelings are. So who knows if a compensation package will pass. But if you watch it, you will notice in some of that the important part of transparency. And that comes with attaching this entire thing to the PERS and having a continued raise with never bringing this back, which is in the charter, by the way, never bringing it back for public viewing. To hear the discussion and hear the vote on giving yourself a raise. Mr. Webb made a good point. It's hard to make that decision. And I may be wrong on this. But there it is. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll try to do this a little more often.